Hello, my name is Abigail Gualda, and today I will be interviewing Katie Allbert. She's a well-known play critic who is a graduate from Boston University, and I will be interviewing her on her play that she saw, Detroit Red, which is based on Malcolm X's life in Boston. I'm very excited to speak with her, and I welcome you to listen and enjoy. Without further ado, Katie Allbert. Hello.
Hi, Abigail.
Hi. So I'm just going to start with a few leading questions right here. So the first thing I wanted to ask you was, what play did you see? What were your thoughts going into the play? What was the first thing you noticed when walking into the venue? And how did you feel about that first opening scene?
Sure. So back in February, I attended a performance of Detroit Red at the Emerson Paramount Theater. The play was written by Will Power and focused on a young Malcolm X's life in Boston, as you had mentioned. I personally was at a little bit of an advantage going to see this play, as I had already been studying Malcolm X's life and recently read Manning Marable's Malcolm X. My first impression of the venue was that it was just a beautiful theater. As I walked in, we stopped to take pictures, and the stage was just absolutely brilliantly decorated around it. But I was a little bit underwhelmed with the set walking in. The stage was pitch black, which is usually typical as the play starts, but the thing is that the lights never turned on, and the only set was just a few black boxes on the stage. I understand that they were trying to go in a more artistic direction, but at that point, I was kind of all ready to predict what one of the greatest downfalls of the show was going to be before it even started.
Wow, well, thank you for that. My next following questions would be, what were your thoughts throughout the play? Did anything catch you off guard in particular? How did you feel about that cast? I know that it was a three-person cast, so that was very interesting. What was your favorite scene in the play? What scene did you think maybe didn't have purpose in it, or what was your least favorite scene to say the least?
So one of my favorite scenes was definitely the opening scene of the show. The play opened with a single actor on the stage, Eric Berryman, who played a fantastic Malcolm X, regardless of any production issues. He was positioned behind a translucent screen, which had videos of him playing Malcolm projected onto it. It was a really interesting twist, and I hadn't ever seen anything like this done in theater before. And I was initially really excited, but I really quickly became a little bit disappointed as the show kind of continued. I realized that the screen was going to remain in between the actors and the audience throughout the show. It was really only used intermittently through Detroit Red, and it ended up being a little bit distracting. I think it kind of took away from the traditional theater experience where you expect to be face to face with the plot when you see a play. The screen prevented the audience from having that connection, in my opinion. And it really only had a meaningful purpose being there in the opening and closing scenes. So I believe that it should have been removed for the rest of the show. As for the cast, they were all very talented, a very small cast, so it takes a lot of skill to be able to pull that off.
Yes, I agree with you on that. So with being a well-known critic as you are, do you have any critiques or improvements that you would suggest for this play, seeing that you didn't really feel too fond of the screen in the middle? Would you recommend this play to anyone else? What was your overall view of the play, and what would you rate this play?
So, as I mentioned earlier, the show's main issues were with things like set and lighting. Again, the screen was a big problem for me. I kind of felt disconnected from the actors in a way that I really feel that I shouldn't at a live performance. The other main issue that I had was with the lighting. Every move the actors made was partially lost in the darkness, and sitting in the mezzanine, I could barely make out what was happening. This was a really critical error on the production team's part, as every person in the theater should be able to make out what's happening when they go to see a show. And the people who I spoke to who were sitting around me had similar experiences. As for if I would recommend it, like I said, I had a moderately extensive background of Malcolm X going to see the show, but even I found myself lost at points, probably due to the lighting, as I had mentioned. Because of that, I would really only recommend seeing it if you're well versed in his history. And even then, make sure you can afford orchestra seats because that kind of seems like the only way to ensure you aren't missing out on major details. Each of the actors was very talented, as I said, and I think the script was well written, but a lot of that was sadly lost in the Arts Emerson production of the show. I would probably rate this a 5 out of 10.
Wow, well, thank you very much for your time, Katie. I really appreciate it, that you were able to meet with me under these circumstances. Um, Thank you, I really appreciate it. So our next interviewee that we have is Kendall McShane. He's another very well-known play critic. He will be answering my questions regarding the Gloria Simon play, Gloria Life. He too is a graduate from Boston University, and I'm very excited to see what he has to say. So Kendall, I'm kind of gonna go along the lines of how I interviewed Katie a bit. So my starting questions for you as well are going to be: what play did you see? What were your thoughts going into the play? What was the first thing that you noticed when walking into that venue? And how did you feel about that first opening scene?
Yeah, well, I had the opportunity of attending a performance of Emily Mann's Gloria Life at the American Repertory Theater in Boston. And walking into the performance, I knew very little about Gloria Steinem, even though, she has the status of being an American icon. Yet after the performance, I found myself ever more curious about one of the leading figures of the second wave feminist movement. And when walking into the theater, my first impression of the set was how intimate the playing space had been set up. The set actually was modeled after Steinem's living room area and included pillow cushions directly outside of the main stage, which openly invited the audience to become part of the story and conversation. And further adding to this intimate method of storytelling, Act Two of the performance was a callback that invited the audience to share their own experiences while observing and taking in the entirety of what the feminist movement could mean for the future of all people in society. And the cast was an all-female group, which I believe could not have been any more superb in their method of telling or portraying the stories and actual dialogue of the most influential figures in the feminist movement. Now, the play itself invites the audience to learn and become moved to commit an outrageous act in everyday rebellion, which was spoken by the actress playing Gloria, in order to make a change in the audience's own community, which could grow to a much larger scale. Now, I would recommend anyone to attend a performance of Gloria Alive, as much can be gained from the storytelling method presented by the actors and the experiences that live through them. Anyone can witness this performance and become a person to want to evoke change. All of these taken into account, I would probably rate it about a 7 out of 10. There were some technical things that took me out of the performance, but I believe that anyone can see this and be moved to hopefully change things for the better in the future.
Thank you so much, the both of you. I also got to attend these plays, and I can definitely see both of your concerns with each of them, and I really appreciate your input on both of them. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I really appreciate you being able to meet with me under these circumstances.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a nice day. Thank you.
For any of you interested in seeing either show mentioned in today's interview, Gloria Alive will be open at the American Repertory Theater from January 30th through March 1st. Detroit Red will be open at the Emerson Paramount Center from February 1st through February 16th. Thank you for listening.